What's up, everybody? Thank you so much for listening to Your Ex-Drinking Buddy. My name is Brennan Tassif. I'll be your host. Subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. Check out the merch store at brennantcomedy.com/merch-store. And make sure you subscribe on YouTube as well. We'll put the shorts up there, the full video, the whole thing. Thank you so much for listening. I love it. I hope you love it. Subscribe on Patreon, too. We do bonus episodes. I do Tales from the Restaurant, where I talk about celebrities I've waited on and whether they're assholes or not, which is super fun. Also, we do a pre-show banter for my other show, Cheers from the Press Box with Joe Dorville. A lot of behind-the-scenes stuff going on over there, too. Make sure you just subscribe everywhere, just all over the place. I greatly appreciate it. And if you're not leaving the mean comments, thank you for that. Maybe leave a couple nice ones.
Grab me your beer and grab me a coke. We bout to sit for an hour, bullshit and tell jokes. And please don't mix it up, cause he done sobered up. Brennan T Comedy on your social media feeds. And Brennan Tassif is your ex-drinking buddy. Brennan Tassif is your ex-drinking buddy. Brennan Tassif is your ex-drinking buddy. Brennan Tassif is your ex-drinking buddy.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of Brennan Tassif is Your Ex-Drinking Buddy. I'm your host, Brennan Tassif. If you're new to the program, quick rundown of the show. I used to be everyone's favorite drinking buddy. It was my favorite thing to do. Hang out with friends, get drunk, do drugs, get in all sorts of trouble, and then reminisce about those crazy stories. I am sober now, but it's still one of my favorite things to do. Hang out with somebody and reminisce about the crazy old days. Most weeks I'll be joined by a guest. This week is no exception. All the way from New Jersey, Mark Henely.
What's going on? It's me, the big dog of comedy, the BXG DXG.
What's up, dude?
I'm feeling good. Usually when I'm the big dog comedy, the person I do the interview with is always like, ugh, like a little
No,
bit.
fuck that.
I like this. Yeah.
Yeah. So plug everything before we get too far into anything. Plug everything up front. Social media. This will come out in 2 weeks. So any dates you have coming up in March or anything like that?
At Mark Henely, MarkHenely. That's my Instagram. I put a lot of stuff on there. Right now I'm releasing a series of interviews called Hug-terviews, where I hug where I hug somebody and then I interview them. And it was I think a bad idea. And every time I film it, I'm like, this is actually bad. This is so uncomfortable. But they've been funny, and I'm
saw
hoping
the first
they get
one
there.
you put up. It's very, you have the double camera. And it's very. Dude, that's hilarious. Anything else? TikTok, Facebook, all that stuff?
TikTok's the same thing, too. It might be BXG, DXG. I can't really remember, but those are my things right now.
All right, awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show. You are in this, if we were talking about sports, in like a coaching tree kind of a thing. You are in, or at one point we're in the family of the roast guys. So I've had Matt on, Bobby on, and now you. We got to get the elusive Ben Miller, that little elusive boy. But yeah, so that's kind of how we ended up meeting. Was I had Bobby on, and I think you saw Bobby's clips.
Yeah, I saw the reels, and I was like, oh, these are really funny. And so I was like, hey, I used to drink, and I used to when you were saying that, like, you used to be like the crazy person.
Yeah,
I feel like I definitely related to that too. Like, drinking to me wasn't, some people are like, oh, I need to calm down after work. That was never me. That was never, my thing was always like, oh, let's go get drunk and have a fucking classic night.
Yeah, let's go
nuts.
Let's make a memory, baby. And that's from, God, that line's from Friday Night Lights. But I remember in college when my drinking was already out of control, I started watching. So I was a few years behind, but on Netflix, they released Friday Night Lights. And Tim Riggins' character is always like, let's make some memories. And I was like, that's what it is.
Oh, yeah.
That's what it is.
I think I just wanted exciting stuff to happen in my life.
Yeah.
And then drinking is the only time that would like ever even get close to exciting things happening.
Yeah, I was doing a spot last night, and because I have a bunch of jokes obviously about being sober, and I said, I'm 7 years sober in May, and everyone cheers, and I always say the same thing. I go, don't. You guys are all like, it's so boring. You're all drinking right now. Like, what?
Yeah.
Before we get into some of the stories and stuff, I always ask my guests this because I've had actors and musicians on, mainly comedians. But comedy itself is such a niche thing. So take us back to the beginning. I know you're from New Jersey. How did you even not get into stand-up? How did you even find stand-up?
I was in a metal band.
Okay.
I was like a metal guitar player, and I was very bad at it. But and so at some point, I think I knew I needed to pivot to something else, and I somehow just decided that I could do stand-up comedy, so I signed up for the Stress Factory open mic.
But how did stand-up even, like, that's what I'm saying, is because like, I have guests that come into the restaurant and they go, oh, I love stand-up. I go, who's your favorite stand-up? And they go, Dave Chappelle. And I go, well, everybody knows, like, that doesn't count. But then I'll be like, oh, I love like Bill Burr and Tom Segura, and they go, who are they? And I go, so you don't love comedy?
Oh.
So how did like stand up, like you thinking I can pivot to stand up? How did that even happen?
Well, we used to always watch it in my house. I remember my whole family went and saw Paula Poundstone when I was a
Okay.
kid. That's like a 90s like lady comedian
Yeah.
in a big suit.
Paula Poundstone,
and,
yeah.
And I remember like afterwards my stepdad was just like, the best part was you were just laughing so much the whole time.
Okay, so you found
So-
it through your family, through your
Yeah,
parents.
and through like Comedy Central Presents, we'd watch like
Yeah.
those all the time. I would DVR the specials and I would
Yeah.
watch them over and over again.
I did
like,
them on VHS because I'm probably a little bit older, but yeah.
the Daniel Tosh had like a Comedy Central special I would watch all the time. Live at Gotham, I would watch those over and over again.
Okay,
I
so
would
you found it at an
yeah.
early age.
Yeah,
Because when
no,
I have younger
yeah.
comics on, especially like in their early 20s, they're always like, what are you talking like? Because comedy is so big now. They're like,
Yeah.
it's all I see on my reels. Like it's all I see on my feed.
That
and I'm
makes
like,
sense.
oh, okay. But like we're a little bit older, so
Yeah.
it's like we had to like find it.
Well, Comedy Central Presents would be on like kind of like every day at 11.
Every,
so I would watch
every
it.
Friday was the new one. Every Friday at 11.
I
during
wouldn't
the
even.
season.
I wasn't even watching that. I would watch whatever the reruns were. So
Okay.
I would just see whatever the reruns were
Yeah.
like over and over and over again. And recently, I work from home, so I could watch whatever I want on TV all day. And I've been throwing on old Comedy Central Presents. And I
Dude.
think it might be one of the best TV shows ever. Like, up
It's
there with Sopranos,
so
all
good.
that stuff, because it's just like the best comedians of their time doing their best. Like 20, 30 minutes.
Yeah, and it's I
yeah.
like it because it's not a full hour. It's not
Oh, yeah.
like because like we can put stuff up like my one man shows up on YouTube. Like
Yeah.
we can do whatever we want. But when you have that, because one of my very good friends, Matt Fulcheron, shout out,
Yeah.
we're going on tour this spring. Get tickets on the website. But he did a Comedy Central Presents in 2012,
Oh, wow.
and I remember he was telling me. He tells me about it all the time. He's like. Everyone's like, oh, this will change your life, and like your best this, and obviously
Yeah.
like it does, like it's just another credit, and then you keep moving forward. But I found it so fascinating how it's like, no, it like you
Yeah.
work and work and work, and like it's your best 25,
Yeah.
like your best.
And my dream I think even still now is to be like one of the guys, like for someone to say Mark Henley's my favorite comedian and I have it sound ridiculous, you know? That's my goal. And I feel like Comedy Central Presents, like if someone was on Comedy Central Presents back in the day, in my head, they were good enough that you could kind of say that about them.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, and yeah.
It's crazy too, the later ones, like right before they stopped doing it.
Yeah.
Because like guys like Soder and stuff, they got it, but
Yeah.
it was like towards the tail end of Comedy Central Presents. And it's so crazy to be like, oh, you guys even got one of, like, that's crazy. Because it's not like a thing anymore.
Yeah, I don't even know. To do that now would be so crazy because, like, you would do the special and then it would go to nobody because no one's watching Comedy Central.
Yeah.
That's something I struggle with a lot lately now, too, is, like, what are the goals to even have in comedy? Because so many things that I would have wanted to do when I started, they would... if I did them, they would be bad decisions.
Yeah.
Like, the idea of releasing a DVD when I first started... Because I had like the Zach Galifianakis live at the Purple Onion.
Oh,
I had like the Comedians of Comedy tour. Like those are like my favorite things. And then if I released a DVD now, it would be a financial disaster.
Yeah.
I could do it. I could do it easily.
You could do it right now.
Yeah,
we
I
could
could.
jump off this and jump on the computer and have it done.
Yeah, we could print them out and then like nothing would come of it. It would be nothing.
It's so weird. I love that you said that because thinking back to when I was a kid
Yeah.
and like having my own merch and like having
yeah.
that kind, like I was like, what if I had like a fucking t-shirt? And now with the internet, it's like I have
Yeah.
a whole store. Like
Yeah.
nobody buys anything, but it's there. It's floating around.
Yeah.
So it's just crazy because like back then too, you would have to like find a design, like print out the shirts and like get like
Yeah.
100 large, 100 medium, 100 small. Now I use a website, free plug, Printful, where it's merch on demand.
Yeah.
So you don't pay anything unless someone actually buys it. So
Yeah.
it's like, but nobody buys it. So I'm like, I would have rather just had like 100 shirts and just given them out.
Yeah, you have theoretical merchandise.
So you were in a metal band.
Yeah.
Rip it in a. Can you
Which
actually play the guitar?
making shirts the metal band was like the number one thing we wanted.
Yeah.
When you're in a band, all you want is a shirt that you all wear, and you wear it to school, and then you show it to people, and then
That's my
your friends
podcast
buy
shirt.
it. That's the best thing that all you wanted.
Dude, I'm wearing. This is a podcast that I did with Daniel Torado and Matt Fulcheron called "The Power of How." But I had I have my ex drinking buddy
Yeah.
merch, and I'm from Florida, so I didn't have any like hoodies like growing up. Like you
Yeah.
have one jacket, like in case it gets cold. So when I went to move to New York, I went on my own merch site and just bought my own hoodies, and now that's all I wear.
Oh, that's awesome.
But I mean, you're talking about high school. I'm 36, but still, it's still super cool to like. And people see it and they go, "Oh, that's a fucking ex drinking buddy. That's like a cool idea." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Check out the podcast." So you're in a metal band. Did you guys make shirts? Tell
yeah.
me you made them.
We made some shirts.
Yeah, you did.
I've
What was
even
it
made
called?
shirts. It was called Morbid Visions.
Fucking yeah, it was. Yeah, it was.
In recent years, I've even made some other shirts. I used to help produce Comedy Fight Club, and I'd perform on the show, which is like a roast battle show in New York. And we would make
Oh, we've talked about it.
yeah.
a lot.
We would
on
make
this
shirts.
show.
And one of my favorite things was we ran a tournament called the Comedy Fight Club King of New Jersey tournament. And it was called the Big Dog Invitational. I'm the big dog, so I'd invite. I just like took the like the 8 comedians I thought in Jersey were really good, and I had them all do a tournament. And then I had a scheme because I'm real into wrestling. So the scheme was whoever went to the end, I would have like all right. So let me. I'm like stuttering a little bit. So what I would do is before the main event, like the final round, I had them sign a contract like on stage and stuff. And they signed a contract for like the final. And then I revealed that that the contract meant that if you won the Big Dog Invitational, you didn't become King of New Jersey. You had to beat me first.
Okay,
So I
a little
printed
bait and switch kind of a thing.
So I printed a shirt that said Comedy Fight Club King of New Jersey and had a picture of Bruce Springsteen playing guitar on it. And then I, of course, won the tournament.
Yeah, of course.
Because it was the funniest thing if I stole the tournament from the
Yeah.
winner.
Well, that's very much like when they have the Royal Rumble.
Oh, yeah, it's a pro
And
wrestling
then,
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, you get to like number 3, and the guy's in the ring. He's like, I might win. And then all of a sudden you hear like the glass shatter, and you're like, ba-da-na-na, and they're like, Stone Cold. And you're like,
Yeah.
motherfucker.
In particular, there was a WWE had a Saudi Arabian show like 8 years ago.
Okay.
Where they were doing the best in the world tournament. And then in the last round, Shane McMahon subs in. Vince McMahon's son.
Yeah, I know
runs it.
Shane. Shane used to come into my restaurant. And,
Oh, did he?
Yeah, when I worked in Tribeca, he would get to go.
Yeah.
And I'm an Attitude Era kid.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So, like, I know Shane O'Mac. And he's bigger than you think he is when you see him in person.
He's got to be giant. He also, I think people sometimes make fun of him on the online. He's got to be like the coolest guy in person.
He's so cool. And that's the thing is, like, when he came in, because he came in to get to go a few times.
Yeah.
And the first time I was like starstruck because
Yeah.
I was like, "That's fucking Shane O'Mac, baby." But then the second time I was just like, "Hey, I've seen you a couple times. Just want to let you know, big fan of the Attitude Era.
Yeah.
Like that's what I grew
Yeah.
up watching." And he was just super cool about it, very cordial, and like
Yeah.
talked to me for like 45 seconds about it. And then he's like, "All right, I gotta go." And I was like, "Fucking what just happened?"
I'd worry I'd start getting tearful talking about him wrestling Kane
Oh god,
in an ambulance match or something.
Oh god.
Just like the dumbest storyline ever, and I'm like, that was so cool when you jumped off the ambulance.
I loved it. So I want to get back on track. So you're in
Yeah.
a metal band, and you decide. How old are you when you're like, I don't think this is gonna work?
I probably was like 20 years old.
But you started this in high school.
Yeah, so I was playing in metal bands through high school and through community college.
Okay.
And then I towards the end of community college, I was like, I think I want to pivot to stand up. So
Okay.
I did a couple of Stress Factory open mics, and then I had math class the same time the open mic was, so I just couldn't do it for months. And then I went to Rutgers, which had Stress Factory, and then I did it for a few months before bombing. And
So you were
quitting
doing
forever.
like okay for a little while.
I didn't bomb until for maybe 6 months.
And how often are you going? Once
Maybe
a
a
week.
couple times a month.
Okay,
And
okay.
not for a few months. I did 2 and then not for a few months and then maybe a few times a month and then just kind of quit after I bombed. Didn't really admit to myself that I was quitting.
Okay.
And also
Well, take us through it. What happened? So you go to the open mic.
So what
I know
hap-
you remember. We all remember.
So
our
here's
bomb.
here's what happened. So there's a few things going on. So first off, I went to Demarest Hall, which is a very artsy express yourself dorm in
Okay.
Rutgers. And I grew up in a mostly white town, and then all of a sudden I was meeting a lot of non-white people that were very liberal, and I
Yeah.
was also liberal, so I was very much
We didn't like it, Mark. We hated it. We said get out.
but I was also very so what do you guys all think? And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, I don't know anything about anyone else
Yeah.
but people in my hometown, so I started
Yeah, just your environment you grew up in. Yeah.
So I went from being I'm an offensive comic to being I actually don't even know what that means anymore. I actually, now that I'm meeting other people that aren't like me, I actually don't really know where the lines are. And then I bombed on a show that had people that went on to be famous on it. It was not a show, it was an open mic. They
Yeah.
came down to New Brunswick to do an open mic from some New York comics. And so what I didn't realize at the time was I was still very new, so the room was hard.
Yeah.
But they were experienced, so it wasn't for them. But because I in my head was I'm the special boy, and comedy's been waiting for me.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
you've been watching comedy since you were a kid.
Yeah.
Every show you've done up to this point, you haven't done
Yeah.
bad.
And then I didn't realize that me at maybe 6 months in was nowhere near as good as Mike Lawrence, who was probably
was Mike Lawrence?
yeah, who's probably hitting 50 mics a week. And then they're just in New Brunswick for some reason. He crushes leaves.
Dude, I see that now. It's funny
Yeah.
because you see the parallels. like now being in comedy, because I started in 09,
Yeah.
so on and off. So I always tell people I started in 2018 because that's when I got sober and came like back
Yeah.
in. But it's weird because you don't forget. Like
Yeah.
from 09 to 18, all those reps in shitty bars and open mic, like you don't like lose that experience. So then when I came back in 18, when I finally moved to New York, it's so weird to be on shows because there's a lot of comedy classes and stuff.
Yeah.
So you'll be on shows with like someone will book me and they'll be like, all right, it's like a class show, but we need like comics to like be in between the class people.
Yeah.
And you'll watch some of them and you're like, just keep pushing. I get like,
Yeah.
But we forget because it's like how Mike was probably then.
Yeah.
Just crushing. And he's like, all right, see you guys later. And you forget, like in the early days, you're like, oh, I'll crush. I've never bombed. I don't even know what that feels like. And then you're just like, oh boy.
And I think I have some connection to that now still because I live in Jersey. So
Yeah.
the open mics there are mostly like hangout mics, and
Yeah.
they're for like new comics. And the older, more experienced comics, I feel like struggle with the fact that it really is for the new comics, the mics.
Yeah.
So you go there and you're like, oh, they're all gonna love me, but they're mostly like intimidated by you and confused.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
then they're
that's-
if there's too many old people, like I think experienced comics that go to a mic, I actually think it kind of kills it.
Yeah.
Because it's meant for them to be cool. And so if me and all my friends are like going up there crushing, and then they're like, not being able to be the good best of the mic, I feel like they're like, I'll just go to a different one today.
Yeah, and
like,
that actually
quietly.
makes a lot of sense. Is
Yeah.
like if you, and I say this all the time because I go to quite a few mics a week, not as much as I used to, but
Yeah.
like you're still doing it, and I'm always so like upset and like mad at myself if I'm like unless I have like a big spot coming
Yeah,
up at
yeah.
like a bigger club, and I'm like I'm gonna run this this 5
Yeah.
just to make sure I've got everything in order.
Yeah.
But other than that, if I go to a mic and I'm not doing like relatively new, like within the last 30 days stuff, I'm like.
Sure.
Why are you wasting the mic's time? These people, like, what are you
Yeah.
doing? Like, I'm not,
Yeah.
because to your point, it's like I don't walk in and I'm like, oh, I'm such like the cool, wily veteran. Watch me crush at this mic. Like, I
Yeah.
don't do that.
Well, it's very different from New York because I feel like in New York, even still, like I've been around in New York for a long time. I feel like every open mic is its own like ecosystem.
Yeah, it is.
And you walk in, and like a lot of them don't know me. I know a good amount of people because I opened Comedy Fight Club for a while.
Yeah.
So every open mic comic runs through that eventually. Yeah. So I've met everyone, and then my role in the show is I'd open the show, so I'd be like, the show's gonna be great. These guys, they're gonna be good. So no matter what happens in the show, I was at least nice to everybody.
Yeah. I didn't even think about that.
So I would like generally do better at mics than I might otherwise. But like if people don't know you, they're kind of like they don't have any.
no, and that's rough.
Yeah, and
That is,
so-
I've done plenty.
Yeah, and I accept that as New York, but like that is the thing in New York. Whereas in Jersey, there's a bit of like, okay, I kind of have an idea of who this is.
Yeah.
So you can, it's way easier to accidentally bully somebody.
Well, and it's also just real quick on this point, and then we got to get back
Yeah.
because I was telling you
Yeah,
before,
yeah.
I'll get sidetracked on comedy all day. It's fascinating to me because you are correct. There are 100%. There are mics where, like, when I first moved to New York, there were certain mics I was going to, and those were the mics that I went to.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, let me try a couple different mics, and if I liked them, I stayed.
Yeah.
I go to like the same clubs, maybe like 5 or 6 mics a week, but they're always at the same spots.
Yeah.
So I see all the same people.
Yeah.
So we're all friends, and like it's one of those things where we're all like sometimes we'll laugh at a bit because it's like I can't believe I know you, and I can't believe you're doing this kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it is interesting because I think the hardest mics are the ones where you go. And it's like you don't know anybody, which still
yeah,
I've been
yeah.
in New York 4 years. It still happens.
Yeah.
Where sometimes it's like a random day I get called out of work. It's the only mic that's going on.
Yeah.
So I go to it and I don't know anybody, and then I just eat a dick, and I'm like, I don't like this at all.
I had that recently where I'd never been to the fun mic at Freddy's on Mondays.
Okay.
And I went there and I get on, I like put my name in the bucket. I'm looking around and I'm like, I know some of these people, but like not a lot of them. So I think I have to actually show out. I think I have to actually like, it almost would be wrong for me to try new material.
Yeah, because
I
you
think I have to
have to prove a
actually
point.
show everyone who I am.
Dude, that was my biggest problem when I first moved here.
Yeah.
Is I was like going to mics and I was doing brand new stuff,
Mm-hmm.
like because I was like, that's what you do. Plus,
Yeah.
I had been doing comedy for a while, so it's like I'm not going to do my tried and true material.
Yeah.
And it was like when I first got here, it was like pulling teeth to get booked because all these people that run mics normally run shows. And if you're just doing all new stuff that doesn't even work, they're like, oh, this guy sucks. And I'll never forget, Isaac and Andrew, the Village Idiot guys, got me on a show like when I first moved here.
Yeah.
And it was at the Mayfly downtown. It was 10 o'clock on a Monday. I brought like a couple people from work. I'd been living here for like 3 months. I was so excited. And I did well. And I remember afterwards, one of them was like, man, that was really good. And I was like, Yeah, I'm not doing open mic material on a show, dude. Like, I've been doing this for a while.
No, it's like when you go to like the mic the first time, you kind of do have to like
You almost
have your set,
which I didn't learn until way after, and I was like, God damn it. So let's talk about it.
Sure.
Sorry, there was that weird dead air because we were both laughing, and then I drank some water. So you're in a metal band.
Yeah.
You decide to shift over to comedy.
Yeah.
You were talking about doing the comedy thing. When was it? When were you like, oh, this is because we kind of got up to the point where you quit.
Yes.
Or unknowingly quit.
I quit and was on and off for a while. There's a period of time where I started up again after college, where I was only doing what were like funny erotic poems.
Okay.
And like it's very embarrassing that was the thing that I was like, that's who I'm going to be. But like it is weird how people stick
big
around.
dogs now doing poems.
This is weird how people stick around because every once in a while someone from that era will still be around and they'll be like, remember when you did that? And I'm like, let's never talk about that.
Yeah, we don't have to.
Let's move on. Let's move on.
We don't have to bring that up. So when was the catalyst where you were like, "Oh no, this is what I'm doing"? Because you're in it now.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
like doing the thing.
Probably around like 2014, I was just like living in New York and bored.
Okay.
So I was like, I'm just gonna start hitting open mics tonight. And I was listening to podcasts at that point, and they like kind of talked me down from being because before I was like, oh, like only special boys get to be good at stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
And they were like, everyone's bad at first. It takes time. And then I started going to mics and understanding that I wasn't gonna be great, and like letting myself kind of go through that. And then I ran out of money. And then was just like living in the Jersey Shore with my mom, and then with a girlfriend for a while, just doing the like Jersey Shore circuit, which is like zero industry. So I was just with zero industry.
Just you and your friends.
Yeah, just with my friends. Not even friends, like old men that were trying to play guitar.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And then I would just be like, they're like, I'm gonna do like 10 minutes in the mic, and they're like, I guess so. And then you're like doing comedy to like people that are trying to do jam band music. And they're like, we don't want you to do it, but
ambushing
you
an
can.
open mic.
Yeah,
I've heard of ambush comedy at like a restaurant, but you're ambushing the open mic.
And I would go to this one every week that would give you 15 minutes. It was in Keyport, New Jersey.
That's a long time to do stand up.
But because with musicians, that's like 3 songs.
Yeah.
It's fun, you know? And the young people would like me there, but the older people were always like, what is this guy doing?
He's wasting the time at the mic.
And there's one time, it was afterwards, I was talking to this older guy, and he just looks at me and he just goes, man, I miss when comedy was like Bob Hope. And I like.
What does that even mean?
It means whatever. It means to him, whatever I'm doing is not what he recognizes as stand-up comedy, and he's gonna give me credit for that. But he's like, I just wish it was Bob Hope again. Bob Hope knew how to do comedy.
Dude, because I'm a student of comedy. I've got all sorts of books that I've read. I've read the history of sketch comedy, Lenny Bruce's book. Like I read all that shit, and because I love history, and so it's so fascinating how it evolves. But it's also one of those things where it's like. Yeah, like I've watched or listened to the audio of like Lenny Bruce's sets. It's like, first of all, that wouldn't fly now. Second of all, it's like observational humor.
Yeah.
Which he obviously broke through with a lot of that stuff, but it's still like, if I went on stage and I was like, huh, how about the president? He's crazy, right?
Yeah.
Everyone would be like, yeah. This isn't funny. But back then, everyone's like, oh my God, that's hilarious.
Yeah, and he was in his moment trying to be like, listen, Bob Hope was what comedy was to me, and it wouldn't work now. You would be doing worse if you were doing that, but I would like it. And that's kind of... Like it was like his attempt to try to understand. He was like, you're here all the time, but you're not Bob Hope, and that's fine.
That's fine. So then that's when you were in it. You were back in.
Yeah.
When did you come back?
It took like 2 to 3 years.
Okay, and then you were back in.
Yeah, so like around that time, I think maybe around 2016, I think I moved back in. So I like left in 2014, like moved, or 2013, 2014.
When you say New York, do you actually mean, because you're from Jersey, do you mean?
I was in East Harlem.
Okay, so you actually mean New York.
Yeah, I was living in East Harlem. I'd taken some UCB classes.
Okay.
And I was like, I'm going to move to this. And then I moved to New York, and I was like, UCB classes are expensive.
Yeah.
So I was just like running out of money, and I couldn't like find a job that made
kept
any
like
sense.
moving here and then running out of money and moving back.
And then eventually, like, that's why I settled in Jersey City, because I had a job like in the middle of Jersey. So it was just like made sense to commute there and then come back, and then I would like go into the city and just, you know.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about it because you had sent me a message about one major story that happened, which we're actually going to save for the end, if you don't mind. We're
we'll go for
we're going to close on that one. But I always I'm always interested in this because you don't drink anymore, correct?
No.
Okay. And I'm always interested in this whenever I have guests on, whether they currently still drink, or still party or whatever, to like don't drink anymore, or like completely don't touch anything. When was the first time where you were like, when you drank? Like the first time you can remember where you were like, oh,
Yeah.
this is a party.
So when I was, because I was really against drinking for like a long time.
Look at us, dude. Look at us. I was so
yeah.
anti-drinking.
I was like into metal and stuff and
Straight
punk,
edge, baby.
but I was like, and yeah, and I wouldn't be like I'm straight edge, but I was like I wouldn't drink at all.
Yeah.
But my friends would sometimes, but they wouldn't necessarily invite me when I was doing that. And there was one time where my friend Ian, who's very charismatic, he was like the bass player in my band.
Yeah.
He was like, hey,
Bass
have some
players,
of this, and it was like a Wawa lemonade.
Okay.
Do you know Wawa?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it's
They're in Florida now.
it was a Wawa lemonade that was half filled with Bacardi.
Oh, geez.
And we're just like drinking it on his couch at like 1 in the afternoon.
And this is what, 18, 19?
19, yeah.
19?
And I was just like, this is so fun. And I loved it. And I went from being like, maybe I don't drink to maybe like, I was like, maybe I do drink sometimes.
Did you not drink for personal reasons, things around you? Like, you don't have to get into specifics, but like, what was the reason? Like, did you have a specific reason why you didn't drink?
Not necessarily. Like my parents didn't drink when I was growing up.
Oh, really?
So there was like no alcohol in the house. Really.
Okay, so you just weren't around and weren't accustomed to it.
Yeah, I wasn't accustomed to it. I kind of liked the ability to be like, I don't drink. Like a
Yeah.
little bit of that. But then we started doing it. And then I remember a couple of weeks later, we all got drunk. Me, my friend Rich, and Ian. We all got drunk and we walked around the shore. I lived in the Jersey Shore.
Yeah.
So we walked around this like shore town drinking like lemonade and Bacardi. And just
That was your go-to, man.
That was our go-to. And just like being on the boardwalk, and then we would yell at people, "When I move, you move."
Just like that.
Yeah. and then we were hoping to get one of them to say just like that, but they would just stare at us, be like, "What are these children doing?"
Well, yeah, because we're around the same age. I
Yeah,
think.
yeah.
So it's one of those things where that ludicrous.
Yeah,
was
you do it
huge back
immediately.
then.
Like, yeah, just like that.
Yeah, that's what I did. That was my response. So when because I find this because I didn't drink either, but it was for very specific reasons. Because like I had an ex stepdad who was an alcoholic,
Yeah,
and it was
yeah.
like I was like, oh, this is poison. Like I'm
Yeah.
not gonna. And full disclosure, transparency. I know the listeners know this, but it gave me some self-righteousness. Like it
Oh,
gave
yeah.
me some sense
I
of
love
like
that. I still
I'm
love
better
that.
than you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a group chat where I talk shit to all my friends all the time, and they all drink, and I just, whenever I want to, I'll just be like, I drink, you guys are alcoholics. Just taunt them for no
I
reason.
remember a buddy of mine who lives in California when he first got sober, and this was so relatable. Because he's like me, like completely
Yeah.
sober. When he first got sober, he would drive by, like 2 weeks into being sober, would
Yeah.
drive by liquor stores and be like, so sad. Those people, and when he said that, I remember listening to him because he has a podcast. I remember listening to him say that, and I was like, oh, that's how I feel. That's how I feel when I was
Yeah.
like 18, 17, 16, 17,
Yeah.
and everyone's going to high school parties, and I was like, so sad, you guys. So sad.
Yeah.
But to your point, and exactly what happened to me, and a lot of guests I've had on the show, what happened with them who subsequently no longer drink either,
Yeah.
was when they first started doing it, they're like, oh, this is kind of fucking awesome.
Yeah, it was cool, and I loved that. Like we were doing fun stuff. We were running around town, we were yelling at people, and that was fun. And then like,
Man on the street before man on the street.
and then every time I would drink, we would have these wild parties.
Yeah.
Because they were like adult goths, and they would get drunk. There was one party where we were all drinking in Point Pleasant, New Jersey, and then the cop showed up, and the guy whose house it was, he was like. He like jumped out, like people jumped out the window.
Oh, Jesus.
To, like escape
oh, yeah,
the cops.
you're in a metal band, so you're
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
partying with like crazy people.
Yeah, and people, and there's at one of the parties, the one guy was like, I like pain, cut me. And then we're all like, no. He was like, all right. And then, so I went to Rutgers, and then everyone there is like young professionals.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about it.
They're mixed race young professionals, and I'm like, you guys go to parties where people want you to cut them, and they're like, what? And I'm
what
like,
is wrong with you?
I don't know.
So, because you're 19 at this time, so
Yeah.
you're in community college.
Yeah.
So you didn't drink at all in high school.
No.
So we can skip ahead. So when you get to community college and you start drinking, that's when you're going to like the Jersey Shore and doing all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff.
Well, I lived in Belmar, which is the Jersey Shore. So I would
Okay,
go to,
yeah.
like,
So
I would just
you're
go
there.
to, yeah.
You're like, I just walked outside. So when you get to Rutgers,
Yeah.
take us through so when you're done at community college, are you looking forward to going to a big university? Because there's a lot of paths. Some people go unwittingly. Some people are excited. What was your idea because Rutgers is one of the biggest schools in the Northeast.
Oh, yeah. I had no idea what I was doing. I was
Okay.
just like, I graduated high school, and then I was like, fuck, I should do something.
Yeah.
I guess I'll go to community college. And then community college is ending, and I'm like, I don't even know where to go. But my friend went to Rutgers.
Okay.
And they had a comedy club, so I was like, I guess I go to Rutgers now. And then
Okay.
I applied and got in, so I moved into the dorm and stuff. And then
When you get there, are you like, I don't mean to cut you off, but this
Yeah.
is kind of where I was hinting at. When you get there, are you like, now we're going to party?
Oh yeah, that was definitely a big part of it. I
yeah,
was like, we're
'cause-
gonna get drunk and go crazy, and it's gonna be fun.
Because Rutgers is, again, I think it's one of the biggest schools in the Northeast, population-wise.
It's a massive party school too.
Yeah.
There used to be a thing called Rutgers Fest.
Okay.
Where
I think I've had a guest talk about this before.
where people would start drinking at 10 a.m.
Yes, I have had a guest
And
talk
then
about this before.
They would drink all night long, and I was there for 2 Rutgers Fests, and the first one,
yeah, because you get there as a junior.
I got there late, so I go to the first Rutgers Fest. I think it's Brand New is the band.
Oh,
And
yeah,
I don't
I
go.
know
I
Brand
don't
New.
listen to Brand New.
I do know Brand New.
And so everyone goes there. We all get drunk, and I think that morning I was trying to jog. And I fell over while jogging and like busted my head open.
Oh my God.
So I was all bandaged up and we're all drinking and stuff. And you know, at night everyone would be drinking everywhere. It was crazy. Like I was walking.
And it started at 10 a.m.
Yeah, it
so
started at
people
10
would
a.m.
be drinking all day.
And I remember I was walking with this girl that I was like, I had a crush on her, but we like never really dated. And I was wanted to, but it just wasn't gonna happen.
Yeah.
And
I've got a lot of those stories.
It's college. That's when that happens. And we're walking, and this like group of guys like staring at us, like everyone's drinking at Rutgers Fest, and they go, "Is that your girlfriend?" And then I go,
No,
I go,
you didn't.
Yes.
No!
But here's the thing. The vibe they gave it off with, "Is that your girlfriend?" was like we walked and she said, "If you had said no, I would have fucking killed you."
Oh, okay.
Because they were gonna be like, "Is that your
Creeps.
girlfriend?"
Creeps,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I was like, they were like, "That saved me." Like,
Dude, you're the hero in that
Yeah.
story. You're the fucking Dark Knight there.
Yeah.
Not the hero she wanted, but the hero she needed.
yeah. And then the next year it was
Wait, real quick.
Yeah.
Was she like
No, never.
grateful for that?
no, not like that.
What is the?
She was grateful, but it wasn't.
What is the Always Sunny line? The when they go out on the boat.
implication, yeah.
Was that an
Do you want to
implication?
go back outside? No, we weren't doing that. But the next year there was a Rutgers Fest, and the band was it was Pitbull,
Okay.
303, and Yellow Wolf.
God, 303 was huge back
They
then.
were huge, and no one cares about them now. They're fully.
It's so weird because whenever
They fully disintegrated. In
whenever I
memory.
hear a 303 song, I'm blasted right back to
Yeah.
college, and I'm like, man, this band, like, this is all we played.
We had 303, and we had LMFAO, and Society chose LMFAO.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, because they're way dumber.
Yeah, I miss 303. We should, man, I'm gonna start
Yeah.
listening to them again.
Every part of that song, the 303 song about do the Helen Keller and talk
Yeah.
with your hips, that is all of society is against that now.
They were being very
That was funny.
inclusive.
Everyone was like, "It's funny. She's not alive. Who cares?"
Who cares? So what happened at the second Rutgers
Oh,
Fest?
so the second Rutgers Fest was everyone's drinking. I actually decided to go to the
concert? Yeah.
I see 3 boobs. It's very cool.
That's awesome.
And I leave before Pitbull because I still think Pitbull stinks.
Yeah, I'm not
I
a
watched
big-
303. We leave.
As someone from Florida, I'm still not a big fan.
We go back to the. I forgot that might have been your guy.
No.
Sort of like how from the shore
Flow
our
Rider's
guy
our
is.
guy.
Oh, okay, yeah. From the shore, our guy is Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah.
So if you were like Bruce Springsteen, I'd be like Bruce Springsteen sucks. No, like.
Well, and that's also
Yeah.
weird because like Bruce Springsteen transcends everything. Pitbull
Yeah.
is like club music.
Yeah, it's bad, but it's so. But then also we've been in the sun all day drinking, so I'm just like about to pass out. Like the rest of the night, I'm like, this is too. I can't do anything.
Yeah.
So we're just like in the dorms drinking, and then we get.
I can't do anything. So we go back to the
Yeah,
dorms
yeah.
and drink.
Or everyone's drinking around me while I'm like basically have heat stroke, and then like we get an email on all of our phones that says. College Avenue, where we all live, that's the thing we're at, is dangerous. Don't go outside right now. Like a police warning. And then you would see all this footage that on the next day because people were getting into fights everywhere.
Oh, really?
3 people got shot in the butt.
Oh, no.
Like people that didn't
Like
go
Forrest
to our,
Gump style?
Yeah, people that didn't go to our school because the concert was free, so anyone could just show up.
Yeah.
And so 3 people that didn't go to our school shot 3 other people that didn't go to our school in our town, and they never did a Rutgers Fest again.
Oh,
So
so
it was
you
the
were the
final-
last
it was the
one.
final one, yeah.
Well, that's kind of a big deal.
And it was exciting. Yeah, it was just fun to like to be at the party and
Yeah.
to do all that stuff. And
I remember the first time gun violence was at FAU. Because it's a Florida school,
Yeah.
and it's a public school, so you
Yeah.
think it would happen more often. And it's in South Florida.
Sure, yeah.
And fucking gangs in South Florida are like pirates, man. They'll steal anything. They'll
Yeah.
kill anybody. But you'd think there'd be more of that. But it's Boca. Like, it's barely South Florida.
Yeah.
But I remember the first time I heard that someone had brought a gun to campus.
Yeah.
And I was like... No, we're not doing that here. Like, this is like our bubble. Like,
Yeah.
don't fucking bring that shit in here.
Well, Rutgers is like 3 towns.
Yeah.
So it's not even if someone and there's townies, like there's people that live in the town.
Yeah.
So like
That's
don't
how
have,
Gainesville is for University of Florida.
Yeah, we don't have any control over
Yeah,
what
it's a massive.
doing.
It's a massive.
Yeah.
I understand that because I went to Florida Atlantic University, which is 35,000 kids,
Yeah.
but it's mainly a commuter school. A lot of people drive in because they live in South
Sure,
Florida
yeah.
and stuff. But I remember when I would party at University of Florida, because Gainesville is just the campus, similar to Rutgers. It's like, this is what is here.
Yeah.
So it is very weird because you'd see people who are like work at the local grocery store and like went to UF, but then just never left.
Yeah.
We had people who would go to a community college that was nearby.
Yeah.
Because all of their friends got accepted to UF and they didn't. So they would go to the community college, and it's like, there's other schools, man.
This doesn't have to be your whole life.
Yeah. But so when you get out of college, what did you major in?
I majored in English literature.
Okay.
So it's a bad idea.
That's where the poetry comes
yeah,
from.
that's
The big dog has a softer side, as it were.
Yeah.
So when you get out of school, do you immediately go back to where you're from in Belmont, or where do you end up going?
I go back to Belmar, and then I'm like
Belmar?
Yeah, Belmar. Yeah.
Okay, I was
I'm
saying
like
Belmont, like the
commuting
races.
far to like to do SAT tutoring.
Okay.
And I have no idea how to like make any money or do anything. You know, I had a girlfriend for a little bit, and then we like broke up pretty soon after college.
Okay.
So I'm just like trying to figure out what to do, and then that leads me to UCB classes, which on a whim I moved to New York like while taking them.
Okay.
And then like quit my SAT tutor job and was just doing.
Was that your
weird
main
jobs.
job, the tutor job?
Yeah, yeah. But
Really?
that's not a job that ever equals an amount of money an adult.
Well, I was
should
going to
have.
say, you can't sustain that.
No, but I was like trying to figure it out because I didn't want to go back to working at the grocery store.
Yeah.
And like,
I did. That was a weird pull. I pulled
Yeah.
grocery store, and you're like, I don't want to go back.
and I
That's either a great callback or a weird coincidence.
yes, everyone works there. But yeah, so I didn't want to do that, and like the SAT tutoring made me feel nice and special because it was
Yeah.
like a hard job to
Yeah, it's
to
fucking,
do, you
yeah.
know, and I like that. And part of me was like, do I go back to school to become a teacher? And I was, trying to figure out if that would be the move. And then just in my 23-year-old brain, I just eventually decided the move was like, just put it all in comedy. In 10 years, it'll
Okay.
maybe be a career.
So when you graduate, are you still? This is something that fascinates me. Are you still partying? Like, are you still living that Rutgers lifestyle?
Yeah.
Like putting on a
So-
tweed jacket to go tutor, and then as soon as you walk out, like a hammer and some scotch or something.
Yeah, so in college we would get drunk in the dorm mostly, and then I would go back to the shore, and then it was like partying at like bars by the shore, but for locals. We don't really go to like the big tourist bars.
Yeah.
There's a whole like drinking scene that's separate from the tourists.
Okay.
The tourists, they go to like dance clubs, and then we go to like would almost be like dive bars,
Yeah.
or like old man bars, and we would drink there, or we would drink at this guy Tim's house.
That sounds like a bar. Tim's house.
And Tim was like older than us. He was like 26.
Shout out
and
Tim.
And he probably wouldn't. I probably should have said a different name, but like, he's not gonna find
Nobody
us.
knows. There's a
Yeah.
million Tims.
A million Tims. We'd go to Tim's basement and we would drink in his basement. And Tim had an older girlfriend that everyone hated. And they
So
would
you're
just-
23. Tim's 26. The girlfriend's like 30.
Yeah, I probably would have been 22.
Okay.
I'm like 21, 22. The girlfriend's like 32. He's 26, 27.
Got it.
And then my friend Ian, the one that initially got me drinking, he's like 19.
Okay.
So there's like underage drinking. There's
So Ian was
overage
16
drinking.
when he was first getting you
Probably,
drunk.
yeah. He was cool.
He's showing up with Wawa cups, and he's like, "Yeah, I just got my license. Let's go."
Yeah. He's
Dude, that's nuts.
yeah. It was so they were like he was younger
He's
than me
cool.
for sure. Younger. Yeah, he was a cool guy. Very charismatic. But like I don't know, like I don't know how the metal scene was. Were you in the metal scene at all? Were you in that
No.
stuff? So the metal scene was like it's just whatever goths are around.
Yeah.
So sometimes you would end up hanging out with an older person, and then you'd hang out with like younger people, and it would be this whole mix of age things.
Okay.
And it's less complicated when I didn't drink.
Yeah.
Because you're not in the mix of it anyway,
Yeah,
so you're
you're
not
just-
like doing all that stuff. But there was like a weird sketchiness of like overage people.
Yeah, and it is a weird
Yeah.
because I remember in 8th grade. I think it was 8th grade. I wanted to be. I like got into skating like 6th, 7th, 8th grade.
Yeah.
Like inline, aggressive inline and stuff. And I didn't drink, so a lot of those guys were straight edge. So I was like,
Yeah.
oh, this is awesome. And I remember, I think it was my freshman year, maybe. I remember going to Hot Topic because my mom, who was the more like free spirit of my parents, she was like, yeah, I'll take you shopping for school.
Yeah.
And I went to Hot Topic and got all these goth clothes. And I was like, so I was in it in the sense that I wanted to be a part of that scene.
Yeah.
But I didn't really have any friends anyway. So I was just going home and playing Sega by myself
Yeah.
for the
Wearing the
original
coolest
Xbox.
shirt, though.
Yeah, dude, I was wearing my cousin, shout out Tom, he's been on the show before, the one who got me into comedy.
Yeah.
Also got me into like Slipknot and Mudvayne and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah,
Which
yeah.
is crazy because now he loves Newfound Glory and stuff. And I'm like, we really pivoted there, didn't we?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was in it as far as like wanting to be a part of it, but I wasn't like hanging
Yeah.
out with those kids. Because that's a weird thing when you hang out with people and there's like a 16-year-old, a 19-year-old, and then like a 30-year-old.
Oh yeah, and that's kind of what the ranges would be. And
Yeah.
everyone and the big thing in Tim's basement was like you'd only drink Miller Lite.
Okay.
So it was like
Tim's Basement sponsored by Miller Lite.
hard liquor, or like beer was like what men drank, and then hard liquor was for girls. So people they wouldn't drink a lot of
Really?
hard liquor, yeah. And people would just like crush beers down there, and that scene as years went by, because it was there also after I like ran out of money from New York City and stuff. It became increasingly more violent.
Okay.
Where like when I was younger, we weren't at the bars, so there wasn't in the guy's basement. So I feel like everyone was kind of self-contained. Sometimes there'd be like a friendly fist fight, but it wouldn't get that. But like a lot
Which
of
is
those
so
guys,
weird that I know exactly what you're talking about when you say friendly fist fight.
yeah, we're like you'd
The
be,
listeners
it was
are probably like, "The
it was
hell?"
like Jackass kind of.
Yeah.
You'd push each other around.
Or everyone, dudes,
Yeah.
when we all get together, there's a certain kind of guy where if we all get drunk together, we're like,
Yeah.
let's wrestle. Let's wrestle around.
Yeah, and I've
Let's see who
never
really is the
I've never
strongest.
been that guy.
Really?
So in those times, I was also away from that. See, I was always kind of around the chaos, but I was on the outside of the chaos. I was never in the nucleus
An
of the
observer,
chaos.
yeah.
I was always an observer there. And that guy Ian, the guy that initially got me drinking, he was like the alpha of all of them.
Yeah, it sounds like. You mean the guy who was getting hammered at 16? Yeah.
But there were a lot of people getting hammered at 16.
That's
but
true, that's
he was by far the coolest guy there.
Yeah.
And so it was interesting to see people meet him, and then they would kind of like almost map their identities onto him. Which
Gravitate
if they
towards
ever
him,
watch
yeah.
it, they probably won't like that description. But that's how I saw
You're
it.
you're a bunch of posers. You're a bunch of Ian posers.
And the weird thing with Ian is that like because when he was around me, he wasn't like, you're going to be Ian too. He was like, okay, yeah, we'll do like we won't wrestle around. We'll just like I feel like he would do like the weird nerdier, like smarter guy stuff with me. And then when he was with them, they're like, let's all go fight somebody at a bar.
Yeah.
So like,
God, that's super chaotic.
if you sort of had like a kind of, I think in my head, again, might be judgmental. This might not even be true. Like what I think is like weaker boundaries or like a weaker sense of self, you would kind of become like,
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
yeah, you kind of like become violent. And you'd be like jockeying for position in that. But if you had kind of a strong sense of self, like Ian would kind of meet you where you were.
Oh, that's awesome. That's actually
Yeah.
a really good quality to have, is
Yeah.
to recognize boundaries and be like, all right, then we're going to do this instead.
Yeah.
Because that was my problem. I'm very effeminate. I'm very sensitive. I'm very empathetic.
Yeah.
So I remember when I got to college, I was like, I'm not going to get bullied anymore. Like, I'm going to turn my life around. And I didn't. I
Yeah.
stood up for myself.
That's good.
But then it led down this path of like, oh, now I have to try and be that person.
Yeah.
Who's like the scar I got on my forehead, I got because I got into a drunken fight in
wow.
college and I cut my own face open.
Yeah.
To be like, I'll fucking kill you. Like I had to
Yeah.
take on that. And I am bipolar too. So sometimes
Yeah.
that's still like, I still have that guy rolling around back there.
Yeah.
But that's not who I want to be.
Yeah.
So I would definitely be a guy where if I was with Ian, I'd be like, yeah, let's fucking wrestle. Let's do it. Because I don't have the, like
Yeah.
now I do, being sober and like more clear, level headed.
Yeah.
But dude, when I was like 18, 19, 20, like the football players would be like, yeah, we're going to this party. And I'd be like, I don't really, they're like, we're
Yeah.
going to the party. And I'm like, okay, let's go. Or a fight would break out and I'd be like, I guess I'm fighting.
Yeah, and some people are like, they're fighting guys.
Yeah.
Like Ian was definitely a
Some
fighting
people
guy.
love it.
Yeah, Ian was definitely a fighting guy. He told me one time we were hanging out at a bar and I left early, and then the next day he was like, I got into a fight with this guy. This guy comes up to me and goes, "You look like you like Rancid," and I said, "The fuck does that mean, you F?" Well, I mean, I look like I like Rancid. I look like I like Rancid, and he gets into a fist fight with the guy, and then he's like telling me the next day, like kind of like, I don't know why I did that. I like Rancid. I don't know why.
Dude, just looking for it. I wanted to ask you, because we were talking about college a lot, but you had told me about the app extravaganza.
Oh yeah.
So I wanted to ask you about that. When did that
That's
happen?
a more sad story.
Okay. We love sad stories here.
So,
How old are you? Set the scene.
This would have been. I probably would have still been living in New York, probably at 23.
Okay.
So one of my 2023,
or you are 23?
I'm 23.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm 35 now.
Yeah.
We're basically the same age.
Yeah. We're basically the same person.
No. So
Beard, short hair. I have contacts in, but I was going to wear my glasses.
So I had this friend named Rich who was in the Marines.
Okay.
And he was also like, he was a really good friend, but he was also like a big partier too. He loved drinking. He was almost like bad impulse control with stuff. Poor impulse control. So things would get wild with him. Like one time accidentally put me in the hospital because we were all running around messing around, and as I was running, he jumped on my back, and he jumped high enough that I felt like flip forward.
Oh my
And
God.
he cut my head open, and I'm like so bad with blood that I just like passed out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so they had to like call the ambulance and bring me in and stuff. And like he wasn't like, you're a fucking pussy. He was like, you could tell like
You felt bad.
distraught, you
Yeah.
know, because he was just jumping on my back. He wasn't like trying to hurt me. He was just like,
We're just messing around.
Yeah,
What's
just fun, you
what's
know.
horse playing?
Yeah, like dogs jumping on each
Yeah.
other. Like he was like that, and he was like a really like fun guy, and we'd have like so much fun drinking together. There was one time where it was Halloween, and he was coming to visit from the Marines, so he's visiting me at Rutgers, and we had a party that we were going to at someone's house, and we were like, I think I was probably might have been 20, he might have been 22, so he was like, I'm gonna buy the beer for everybody. So
Okay.
we get the beer, and he also, because he's a Marine, he has like actual adult money somehow.
Yeah.
He's like 22 with adult money. He's like buying stuff, and we buy all these like 40s and all these drinks, and then he impulse buys 2 shots of Patron, which again at 20 years old is like,
Let's go.
how do you have this money?
Yeah.
Like, how do you have
Especially then,
$12?
Patron was the thing back then, man.
How do you have $12 for Patron?
It is crazy to go from like college to
Yeah.
like present. That's why I always like waiting tables, because I'm still a server now, and it's
Yeah.
like I always had money.
Yeah.
Like, because we waited, so we'd get cash that night. So I'd like hang out with friends in college, and I'd be like, "Oh, let's go grab some food," and they're like, I only have like $20 to last me the week," and I was like, "What? Like, what is that?"
Yeah, yeah.
So it is a weird thing when you have a friend who's like, "No, we'll just go buy it." And
Yeah,
you're
and
like, "Huh?"
And it's amazing. Yeah, and we go to this party, and it's like a friends of a friend. And
Okay.
we show up, and it's Halloween. We show up in costume. Which
Is Rick
is
wearing full fatigues?
no, he was dressed like I must have been 21 because it would have been Halloween. So he's dressed like a Catholic schoolboy.
Okay.
And I shaved my beard to be Wolverine.
Oh,
and I'm
good.
Wearing like a
good.
wife beater.
Yeah, good call.
I don't have the claws. I'm just like in a wife beater. My beard is shaved like Wolverine with like
It's
the
like-
little.
You gotta be like, "I'm Logan. I'm
thin
Logan."
part. Yeah, I'm Logan. Yeah, and we start like pulling stuff out, and the one girl goes, "Oh, we're not that fun," and then we're like, "That's okay, we're fun. We'll all have fun." So we start pulling out drinks, and then she goes, "No, we're not that fun," and then we're just like, "No, it's fine," and then we all end up having fun because we're all drinking and stuff.
Oh,
like that.
really?
But, like just the idea that we show up pulling out a bunch of alcohol, and she's like, "This isn't that fun of a time. Like, calm down."
Oh, see, I'm so confused because in
Yeah.
college, if someone showed up to a party and like just pulled out all these booze,
Yeah.
we'd be like, "Hell yeah!" But she was like, "No, we're not
Like,
doing
we're not
that."
that. No, they wanted to, but they were also kind of like, "Guys, you need to calm down. We're not going to be that fun tonight." And then it ends up being
Oh, it ended up being a blast.
ended up being great. But yeah, that was kind of like the vibe that we had going on.
Okay.
It was that we'd show up, we'd draw all these drinks. It was like a really
Party
good time,
starters.
Yeah. And he ended up passing away when I was like
Oh,
24.
sorry to
you
hear
know?
that.
Yeah, and it was like a very distressing time where like he was on a training mission and he passed away.
Oh shit!
Which is like, what the fuck happened on this training
Yeah.
mission? You're in the military, you're in Arizona. Like, you shouldn't. Iraq you'd get, but like Arizona you wouldn't get. And like, we had like this whole there's a funeral and the wake and stuff, and we didn't find out till the funeral that he like killed himself and stuff.
Okay.
But like in between the like I'd never experienced like grief like that before.
Yeah.
I was really distraught, and we like
Yeah, it'll hit you like it'll hit you
Yeah.
hard. I remember when I got that call when one of my best friends from the halfway house died from an
Yeah.
overdose, and I was like, "Ha." And they're like, "No, he's gone," and you're like, "No, he's not."
Yeah,
And
and
they're
you're-
like, "No, he is," and you're like, "No, he's not."
Yeah, and that's your whole life.
Yeah.
For that period of time that it takes you to kind of start working through that. So, we have like and we set up this whole thing where in between the wake and the funeral, we were going to go to my friend's beach house.
Okay.
For some reason, my friend, they lived in a beach town, but they had a better beach house.
Oh, okay.
Like 30 minutes away.
That's crazy.
And
That New Jersey money, that Bruce Springsteen money out there.
And so we went and like we go there, and then in between the wake and funeral, we go to the beach house, and we make this whole thing that we're like, we're gonna just give ourselves a break from grieving about this for a little bit, and we're gonna have a party because Rich loved partying, and he would understand. This is what we did, and we had like an incredible night out. Like we went to a place, and my friend was like, we're gonna get an appetizer extravaganza. We're just eating a ton of appetizers. It's like no dinner, it's just eating appetizers, but it's got
This
good
is for
branding.
you, my guy. Nom, nom, nom.
And food is my real addiction, so I'm
Yeah.
just like, this is incredible. And we were drinking Four Logos back when it was still like
Oh yeah.
real Four Loco.
My guest last week was talking about that.
And it was just incredible. We're like drunk, stumbling around Lacey, New Jersey, which is like which is a quiet beach town. And,
Yeah.
and this is
A lot of money.
a lot of money. Yeah, but it is and there isn't. Like Lacey is a town where there's a lot of beach houses, but there's also like rednecks somehow.
Okay.
So it's like a little bit of both. And we're stumbling around the beach towns, and I'm like so drunk, I'm opening up all the mailboxes to see if they have Netflix.
Yeah, they used to bring you the thing.
And everyone's like, that's so funny. And we found no Netflix. And then at one point, I'm like trailing behind everyone and we're walking back because we were walking to his aunt's house because he was like, she has a pool. And then we get there and they're like,
Wait, whose aunt?
My friend's
Oh, the
aunt.
buddies. Yeah, okay.
And then he's like, we don't have the keys. So we're walking back and I'm trailing behind everyone. And I just like take my pants off and I'm like in my underwear. And then I run up to everyone and I go, guys, guess what's different? And then they all took. And then they all take their pants off, and we're all just in our underwear walking around. Yeah.
Oh, that's the name of the episode. Guess what's different? Oh god, dude, that's hilarious.
Yeah. And it was.
That's a good in memoriam. That's like
Yeah.
a good like.
And so I know maybe this shows more about how destructive alcohol can be, but that was a time where like getting drunk and like just having. It can be healing, you know? 'Cause
Yeah.
we needed that kind of break from doing it. That was like, I think kind of the way I got through a lot of the grief was like taking breaks from it because you can't just be like, I'm not sad about this anymore. It comes back up again later.
Oh,
and
yeah.
later. So you almost have
If you don't deal with it, it'll find you.
Yeah, you have like having like an hour break or even like a night break kind of would be good for.
Well, and I say this all the time because like alcohol destroyed my life and I've been
Yeah.
sober for a long time, but it wasn't always like that.
Yeah.
Like when I first, like, cause as you could tell, I have severe anxiety and depression. And like, I tried to kill myself when I was
Yeah.
a kid. And like when I was 17 and I've been Baker acted and like, I hated life. Like I
Yeah.
hated my life and there was nothing wrong with it. I had a great life. Like on paper, it was a fantastic life, but my brain was just in that spot. And so it is when I discovered alcohol and all that stuff kind of washed away, I was like, oh, this is so, to your point, I was like,
Yeah.
this is awesome. Like I can finally be like, quote unquote, my true self. Like I can finally relax.
Yeah.
And I tell people this all the time. I became an alcoholic not because, one, it's a lot of genetics, but not because I was like, from my first drink, I was like, oh, this is like, I got arrested.
Yeah.
I became an alcoholic because for the first like couple years, I was having the best time ever.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Like it was awesome.
Yeah. And there are so many situations that alcohol, even now, if I was into it, would make easier.
Yeah.
Like I hate being in a bar just standing around. I hate it so
can't
much.
stand
It's
it.
so
Well, we
crowded.
have to for work because we're
Yeah.
as comedians, we have to be there. There are so many times where because my restaurant is equal distances between the stand and the cellar.
Yeah.
And I go to one of those clubs almost every night when I get off work. So
Yeah.
like I work 4 days a week, almost I'd say 2 to 3 out of the 4. I always stop at one of the clubs just to kind of see what's going on. The Olive Tree is easier. The cellar's easier because I can sit down and get food and I don't feel like an asshole.
Sure.
The stand is hard.
Yeah.
Because if you walk in and there's no one you see that you know right off the bat, just standing, and it's basically a full bar, just standing around.
Yeah.
I feel like an asshole.
Yeah.
But it's like, I have to be here because I might run into a friend or I might be able to book someone for the podcast. Like I need to be around it.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
also to your point, it's like, I don't want to be here.
Oh yeah, and I'm such a baby about like hanging out like that. I mostly if I'm on a show, I do the show and then I'm like, all right guys, goodbye.
I'll see you later.
I mean, actually no. If I'm on a show, I will hang out and try to talk to audience members afterwards. I do like that part of
Yeah.
it, but I'm not like real good about.
Hey,
Yeah,
great
yeah.
job. You're like, hey, it's all right.
Yeah.
You know.
The meet and greet after the show, I like a little bit. I don't, but like if all the comics are like, we're all gonna hang out, I'm like, unless it's an activity I like, I'm kind of bad at like going and doing. it.
Okay, so because I'm actually an extroverted introvert.
Yeah.
I would much rather be at home, like playing Xbox.
Yeah.
Or like hanging out with my girlfriend. Mm-hmm. But the thing is like because you're from this area, so it's a little different, I
Yeah.
guess. But like I moved across the country to be in New York for comedy. So
Sure,
in my
yeah.
brain, it's like, no, and I also, full disclosure, I love hanging with comics. Like I love
Yeah,
all
yeah.
the shit we talk. I love hanging
Yeah.
out. I love like, throwing bits back and forth.
Yeah.
And like a lot of us are broken toys. So we all have that in common.
Yeah.
So I do enjoy the hang, but it can be like, I've gone to the stand plenty of times when they're having like parties and you show up and all my friends are hammered and immediately I'm like, no, this isn't what I like. And I'll leave because they're all drunk. No one's going to remember shit anyway. They're like, yeah, you should come open for me sometime. Blah, blah, blah. And you're like, you're not going to remember any of this conversation.
Yeah. And me and my friends, we went to Philly for a show the other day. Mm-hmm. And afterwards, my one friend who's like really good about he loves hanging out and stuff like that. He's like, let's go hang out at Raven Lounge and we'll go hang out at Helium. And I'm like, I don't want to do any of that stuff. So I'm tired.
I don't want to do any of that.
I'm like, oh yeah, but I rode down to Philly, so I'm like, yeah, I'll be not a bad sport about this.
Yeah.
And we go to Raven, we're hanging out. And it's like nice, like saying hi to everyone that I know there, and then like it somehow ends up with me and one of the other guys just like playing Battleship, the guy that drove us down there. There's like a Battleship board, and we're playing it. In the middle of it, he goes, I'd much rather, I don't really want to go to Helium that much. I'd much rather us just leave and then get food on the way home. And
that sounds great.
I'm like, you said it. I didn't say it. That's all I want.
You're driving.
Yeah.
You're driving.
Yeah, we should do that.
All you have to do is open your mouth. You're driving.
And then we did. And we had like a burger like on the way back, like kind of actually near Rutgers somehow. It was delicious and it was great.
Well, that's the other thing too is like, it is so funny because people who like to drink, and I got nothing against it. I mean, there's a fucking. But people who like to drink, it's so funny how that can consume. I see it all the time because I work at a very swanky steakhouse. Mm-hmm. And we get a lot of finance people that come in and like we get a lot of celebrities that come in. But it is so fascinating to me where it's like the entire night is encompassed around like getting hammered.
Oh, yeah.
They'll order all this food and barely touch it because they just want to get hammered. And I'm like, sometimes I'm not proud of this, but sometimes if they order like a bunch of steaks and they only like touch a couple of them, I might box those up and take this home with me. You know what I'm saying? Like this seems like a waste. This is very good.
Yeah, no, I'd much rather eat food. My addictions are food and coffee are the two big things that I just need to have all the time.
Yeah,
and if I have those, I'm like pretty even tempered.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's why I feel like I manage that better as I get older. Is like understanding like what your boundaries are and like how to keep yourself from like getting angry at people and managing your emotions is a thing feel like I get better with.
It is something that's interesting because I have gotten better as I've gotten older with that stuff. But again, I'm a crazy person. So it is one of those things where it still rolls around in the back of my head. Like I talked about this before, but a couple weeks ago at work, my manager, who I'm super close with, I love her to death. My general manager was like razzing me about something.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, ha, ha, ha. But then kept going. And then like 3 hours later was still doing it.
Yeah.
And I got to a point where I was holding up a wine glass and I was like, I'm just going to start shattering. I'm going to ruin your budget for the month. And I'm just going to start breaking shit if you keep going.
Yeah, yeah.
And then like that was a couple weeks ago. And now we're like at pre-shift laughing about it. Like, Brennan, remember when you freaked out because I kept going at you? But like we laugh about it now. But I have gotten better. Like I don't break shit anymore, which is for me is a great like elevation. Like it's a great evolution, but I still have the point where I'm like, I don't know how else to get your attention to stop doing this.
Yes.
So I might just start doing bad shit, which is not a good thing to have.
And I've never been a break stuff person.
Yeah.
But I do have like once I have if I'm right, I kind of like can't let it go.
Yeah.
And I don't like it. I don't. It's hard.
I understand
and
exactly
some things like stick with you. Like someone like shushed me at Dunkin' Donuts the other day. And it's been like in my head.
I kill everyone in here. That's not your reaction. That's my reaction.
I like fully talk myself down from being like, it actually nothing good comes from you yelling at some lady at Dunkin' Donuts.
But it's still sticking with you. It's still there. You're like, I want to talk about. We got a little bit more time left. The incident of all the incidents. The reason why you originally messaged me. The whole reason. The precipice for this show. The strip club.
So
what happens?
Part of the thing that kind of stopped me from drinking overall was there was a night where we went to a strip club, and earlier that night, Ian's very heavily in the story. He's way more involved in all this. Like I haven't seen him in a long time. He's way more heavily involved in this whole thing than I think in a lot of ways even thought of.
You're gonna have to text him and be like, "How you been, buddy?"
And
do you still talk to him? You said you haven't talked to him in a while. Are you still cordial? Like, are you still friendly?
No, I haven't talked to him in a while, but I think if I reached out, he would talk,
Okay.
So it's not like there's no.
He doesn't have like a big feud or anything.
No, there's no bad blood. Even this story, like where he's a catalyst of some things going wrong. There's no. Even the next day, I wasn't like holding against him.
So how old are you at this point?
I think I'm 23 at this time.
Okay, so
I was visiting from New York. I was like living in New York. I think I was like taking USP classes. I hadn't started stand up yet, and I we go out to the bar and they give me something called a Four Horsemen shot.
Mm-hmm.
I still don't even know what it is, but I would drink anything.
Jim
back in the
Beam,
day.
Jack Daniels, help me out, listeners. Captain Morgan, and there's one other one.
Yeah, but I would just drink anything when I would drink. My friend, I had a friend Rachel that would like, she would order a drink and she would be like, oh yeah, Mark will have some. I don't care. So she would like, so that would like be part of the thing, and she'd be like, yeah, you'll have some too. It's fine. I would just drink whatever, and because I like had a strong stomach, so I wouldn't really
Still
feel a lot of
trapped,
stuff.
baby.
Yeah. So I wouldn't get like hangovers really. I wouldn't really get even like stomach aches and stuff. So I would do that, and then we were drinking all night, and it was just getting wild. Like we at one point we were driving somewhere, and a guy just got pissed at someone else and just got out of the car.
While it was moving.
No, like at a light.
Yeah, but still.
And then
yeah.
and just got out, and then we're like, where is he? And doing all stuff, and we go to the strip club, and we've had so much to drink that I just fall asleep at the strip club.
Can't do that. That's not allowed.
Yeah, and because I also didn't have that much money, and I wasn't, it was probably one of those things where someone's like, do you want to go? And I'm like, no.
You don't have that sweet tutoring money?
Yeah. And so I fall asleep, and as I'm falling asleep, Ian's being funny, and he's like dancing over me, and they're like, you both have to get out of here.
The bouncers
Yeah,
came
the
up and
bouncers
were
like,
like,
you
yeah.
guys got to leave. So I'm like drunk, and I'm like walking out, and like walking into the car, like half passed out, and then some other guy Ian knows is in the parking lot, and they're like talking, and then there's like 4 dudes the other side of the parking lot, and Ian and his friend start yelling at those guys, and they start yelling at him.
Okay.
And all of a sudden they're in a shouting match.
Ian loves this.
And then they all start fighting
Rancid.
Ian's friend. They're all beating him, and I'm drunk, and Ian runs aside to go get everybody, I guess, to make the brawl happen. And I'm drunk, and I'm just like, I'm just getting in the car. So I get in the car,
True Mark fashion.
close the door, seatbelt on. Because my whole thing was like, I was always like, I was kind of excited when fights would happen, but I never was in them.
Well, it's like you said
never-
before. You were
Yeah.
always the observer of the chaos.
Yeah, or some might say a person egging things on.
the instigator of sorts.
An instigator, kind of like a force of chaos, but was never in the chaos. Was sort of like,
You're an agent of chaos, as the Joker would say.
Like there was one night where we used to always go to this gay bar in Asbury called Paradise, and we weren't gay. We just go there all the time for some reason. And we're there with girls and stuff, and like Ian got into a huge fight with his girlfriend because there was a pool there that no one was allowed to use at night because like you can't let a bunch of gay guys in the pool at night. That's crazy, That thing is gonna be gross immediately. You let the gay guys in the pool when they're drunk after 11? No.
They're like gremlins. You can't get them wet after midnight.
And we're there, and he's like, you think I should jump in the pool? And I'm like,
No.
yeah.
Oh, of course.
And then he does, and it's hilarious. And then he fights his girlfriend the whole rest of the night. God. And he was like, "Why'd you like not say no?" I'm like, "Just thought it was a good idea. I don't know." Like,
Thought it
it's
would
funny.
liven up the party at the time.
Yeah. And like, there was another time where like we're at the 7-Eleven, and he's with this one guy who would like really drink hard to try to impress Ian. And they walk into the 7-Eleven, and within 1 minute, that other guy has his shirt off and is about to fight a guy.
Oh my god.
And like they would do that all the time. And so Ian runs in to go get everyone. They're all fighting that guy. I get in the car, and I can't really even like, it's all like clips in my head of what happened because I was so out of it. But I was like, I think I might get hit, even though I was in the car, and I was like, I'm taking my glasses off. And then they open the car door and they pull me out and just start wailing on me.
Even they took the seatbelt off and everything?
Yeah. And Ian, he comes up and rescues me from them beating me up. God. And when he rescues me, I'm just yelling at them, "You guys are a bunch of bullies." Which is like how
mean.
How out of like not a threat I was in whatever massive fight they were happening was. I was like, "You guys are bullies." So who knows? I wonder. Part of me wonders if I was in there, like in the cars, being like, "What are you guys fighting about? You guys should stop fighting." And then they're like, "Let's shut this fat idiot up." And then they're just,
let's tune this dude up.
Yeah. So that happened, and that was like, the fights had never touched me at any other given time.
Yeah.
Part of this, and it was like. That was a big eye opener because like I had like a black eye.
Oh yeah.
And I was staying at my mom's house that night, so my parents were like, "What happened to you?" Like that never happened to me. So I was just like, the drinking and partying like really kind of like became visible in a way that it wasn't before. And now like I'd had a new experience, which was that like things got really crazy and then it went badly for me, and that had never happened before either.
Yeah.
So like
this is like your comedy.
Yeah. So
like when you first started, it was always good, and then it was bad, and you're like, wait, what?
What do I do now?
Yeah.
And that like I didn't stop drinking the next day, but like it never was the same after that.
Yeah.
There was never a time where I was like, drinking is so fun. You get drunk and cool things happen and everyone's excited. It was just like sometimes you drink too much and like a guy just beats the shit out of you for no reason.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because I remember I say this in my one-man show, but
yeah.
I remember when I went to rehab and then I got out and I didn't drink for almost a year and then I got drunk and everything was like, oh, I was like, oh, this is great.
Yeah.
Like I forgot this feeling.
Yeah.
This is so fun because I was 25.
Yeah.
And then I remember the day when I started drinking on my birthday, my 30th birthday, when my actual sobriety date, it's 2 days after that. But I remember on that day, similar to what you're describing,
Yeah.
I remember taking a shot because I had no intention of drinking. I remember taking a shot and like it wasn't like, oh, this is awesome. Like it was kind of bad.
Yeah.
And then I kept drinking to be like, well, the awesome's like right around the
it's coming
corner.
back, yeah.
It's going to be here. And it just
Yeah.
never showed back up. And I was like, oh, this is it. Like
Yeah.
it's over.
And then the next thing that really was a big hit was I blacked out once, and I woke up and my phone was outside.
Oh, shit.
And like it just bummed me out because like I had spent so much time that day getting everyone to come to the bar. And then I missed it. And like
Oh, you like passed out at home.
No, I passed out like at the bar. Like I was blacked out at the bar playing darts.
Okay.
And my
Oh, you missed it. Like, yeah, I get what you're saying.
And one of my closest friends, a guy I met in Hebrew school, got into a fist fight with Ian.
Of course.
And again, not even Ian's fault. It was that like I guess Ian was doing something annoying and like Alex just like punched him or something. And they got, or no, I think Alex was annoying Ian and Ian punched him. I guess it was Ian's fault.
Yeah.
So they get into a fist fight and then like they're telling me the story the next day. I'm like, where was I? And they're like, you're just playing darts.
Yeah.
So I'm so drunk. My best friends are fist fighting, and I'm just like,
There's, and that's a disappointing thing when you wake up
Yeah.
and you're looking around and everyone's like, that was a crazy party. And you're like, cool, I don't remember any of it. Awesome.
yeah. And then I had a girlfriend around like 20 when I was like 25. I'd already been doing comedy, and I was doing comedy in the shore. So you're driving everywhere, so it's not really fun. You can't really get drunk and then crash your car. You have to like, you can't really drink, so you don't ever like get socialized in the drinking part of stand up. And she would really complain if I drank. She'd
Oh,
be
really?
like, you smell bad when you drink. And then I was just like, so I started drinking less and less.
Get her on roast back.
Because she was like,
Stink.
she was in a way that no other person since then has been very good at telling me what to do, and I would listen. I'm very bad at that now, at listening to directions. But she was pretty good at like getting me to tell what to do. So like I kind of fell out of it, and then when I moved up here, I was already kind of out of it, and then I started hanging out with people like Bobby Sheehan and Ben Miller who were like not drinking.
Yeah.
And then we would just go to Applebee's and hang out, and I just never got back into the drinking circle. And
Dude,
then
that's awesome.
Around the pandemic, I lost a bunch of weight, and it never felt right to then get back into drinking. I at some point I got too fat to really get drunk fast.
Yeah.
And that's when I stopped drinking for real. And then when I lost weight, I was like, I'm not gonna.
Yeah. Why?
I'm not gonna
Empty
forget the
calories.
calorie.
Why?
Yeah,
Yeah.
So
Dude, this was so much fun.
thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on. Plug everything one more time.
My name is Mark Henley, the big dog. I'm on at Mark Henley, Henely. I'm doing hug interviews with a dash between hug interviews. I might not do it after these 3, but I'm trying them out now. If they get any type of response, I'll keep doing them. They are funny.
They're hilarious.
Thank you. So I've been doing stuff like that. So look me up on there. Thank you.
Beautiful, man. Thank you, everybody, so much for listening. At Brennan T. Comedy on all social media. BrennanTComedy.com. Get your tickets for LA, Boston, Connecticut, Florida, all coming up in the spring. I'm touring with Matt Fulcheron. It is the Bro Adjacent tour. So get your tickets there, and we'll talk to y'all next week. Boom. Dude, that was fun, man.
Thanks for having me, man.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, this is a fun show.